Today, I'm going to be talking to journalist Stephen Leahy about his recent Substack article titled Disinformation Designed to Ingrain Erroneous Beliefs and Lies. This is from July 3rd, and I found it very interesting because in the energy business, trust me, there is a lot of disinformation. So, welcome to the interview, Stephen.
Nice to be here, Markham.
Well, we're going to go over sort of the main points of your argument in this video and sort of lay out give me an overview of it, if you will.
Well, I was trying to help folks get a handle on what is kind of a deluge of misinformation and disinformation by delving into some research. There's quite a bit of research on this topic by academics. I mean, we're all immersed in social media, and that means we're all immersed in disinformation and misinformation. So I found some things in the research that was quite interesting. But first of all, nobody's immune to disinformation. We're all susceptible. The second thing is that people who frequently exposed to the same kind of misinformation end up thinking that that's the truth, even though it's fairly obvious to most other folks that it's not the truth. And the third thing is that much of the misinformation these days is designed to confirm erroneous beliefs. I think the phrase has become popular that, people won't believe their own lying eyes. The idea that if something they see with their own eyes contradicts a belief, they won't believe what their eyes see.
We see this all the time, and quite often there's more and more information about how these kinds of disinformation campaigns are not random. They're not just individuals. They're often run by malicious states like Russia or China, and they have very specific strategies, undermining democratic institutions, for example. And what does the research say about how those states run disinformation campaigns?
Well, one thing I think it's important for folks to know, there's a difference between disinformation and misinformation. So disinformation is the deliberate use of erroneous information, lies, and so forth. Misinformation is people passing on these lies and the erroneous information unintentionally. They don't have a particular purpose. They haven't got an agenda. They're not trying to influence behavior or voting patterns. This become a tool, though. Disinformation has become a very widely used tool by state actors, individuals, corporations to push their own agenda. And the techniques have become much more refined. I mean, they're taking a lot of ideas from advertising. And once upon a time, I was a marketing guy. And seeing kind of keywords and ways in which to trigger folks' emotions, because that sort of short circuits our logic. So we feel, rather than thinking about things, to get our feelings to push us towards these erroneous beliefs that will suit these folks' agenda. I mean, they go so far as to use MRIs to see what kind of reaction people are getting in their own brains, to see what parts of the brain are being activated. So it's very sophisticated in some instances.
And the idea that you have to approach social media or public discourse like this is pervasive, because I know in energy media over the last couple of years we've been paying a lot more attention to this, and so, and especially now since January we've moved to video only journalism. The question always arises: what SEO words, what keywords should we use? What hashtags should we use? How might we discuss a particular issue or an interview that would appeal more to our audience? Now, of course, we try to use these techniques to communicate evidence and fact-based discussion, but nevertheless, the techniques appear to be A, universal, and B, effective.
Yeah, they are highly effective. And like I said, these folks test various words and various messages to find out what's going to resonate with folks, and to see and to plot the results. It's in many instances a very sophisticated effort. And now that we have AI, you can add a whole new level to that.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because it's we here at Energy Media, we kind of ignored AI for a long time because we saw it as something that, you know, big organizations were using it to replace journalists, and we shouldn't have AI doing the news, writing the news, anything like that. But as a research tool, it can be very useful, but it's so much more than that, particularly in the last, I would say even a few months, where now we're seeing deepfake videos, deepfake audio, and it's incredible how sophisticated it is. We almost can't believe our eyes. We can't tell truth with our eyes anymore.
Oh, that's very true, and that's probably the scariest thing. Um, and you know, it's folks can easily use these tools now. It doesn't take a gigantic computer or sophisticated programming techniques. Um, so it's become I think, a dangerous era that we've entered. So for me, you have to know the source. Who's providing you this information? Who is um, posting this video? Are they a reliable source or not? So we really have to question pretty well everything we see now.
Now, we're both journalists here, and journalists have been around doing this job for a long time. And I have actually argued that rather than the death of journalism, for good journalists, you know, who interview gold-plated sources, who use credible data and evidence, this is almost an opportunity because I know in our audience, you know, they're looking for who can I trust, just
Yeah.
as you said, and they come to us and they say, you know what, we trust your reporting, we trust your sources, the people you interview. And that has been part of an increase in our audience, quite substantial in the last 6 months, is because people are worried about disinformation.
Yeah, as I put a statistic in there that 70% of Americans are worried about disinformation, more worried about that than they are about climate change, the economy, or other things. So it's definitely a widespread concern. And as you point out, journalists like us, we've, as a necessity, have been, I guess, put into the position of trust, which is why we get attacked a lot by those folks uh, pushing disinformation. They know that we have some credibility. In fact, you know, if you recall, I know I went through many fact checks when I used to when I wrote for magazines like The Atlantic or other magazines. They question everything, every statistic, every quote. They want proof. They'll check the sources that I use to verify they said exactly those things. So that's sort of the training we've had over the years. Um, Meanwhile, on social media, any rando can get up and spout all sorts of things, and nobody's checking what they're saying. We have to do it as viewers or consumers of social media. We have to do the checking and verification.
Let's wrap up the interview this way, Stephen, because this has become an issue just in this week for us. And that is people who are energy professionals. They could be professional academics, they could be oil and gas engineers, they could be people involved in the trading of energy, and they're spreading misinformation. They're saying, I had a comment today on Twitter where somebody said, oh, China's going to always need LNG and more LNG because of petrochemicals. That's
Yeah.
demonstrably false. And when I pushed back, they said, well, we're involved in the industry. Well, yes, you may be involved in the industry, but because you're in some sort of technical capacity doesn't give you the kind of broad overview where, or you haven't done the modeling, you haven't got the statistics. I mean, answer the question I asked, or we were discussing LNG's role in China's economy. You're not an expert in that. And so this is an example of how complex the issue of disinformation can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, and that might be instance of somebody who's unintentionally passing on misinformation because they're not that aware. They want to believe, because they're in the industry, that LNG has a huge future in China. They're not. So the question then is, what's the evidence? Do they have evidence to show that? And from those of us who spent a lot of time studying energy futures, we can see that China's heavily invested in renewables and nuclear. They don't seem to be doing much in the LNG field. So, um, plus, there's all sorts of sources of LNG uh, outside of Canada if they want to get that.
Precisely, and that's what was my response to this individual was feel free to cite sources,
Mhm.
cite evidence and data. Knock yourself out because I've got lots of it. Stephen, this has been fascinating. We're going to be talking, and for anybody who's watching this video, we will be doing additional videos, Stephen and I, short ones on various aspects of misinformation. So watch for those. Stephen, thank you very much for this.
Okay, welcome.